And good Monday evening, Pitt State football fans. Welcome to Chatter's Restaurant and Bar and the Coach Tim Beck Show, presented by CDL Electric. Eddie Lomshek, indeed, along with Pitt State head football coach Tim Beck. PSU 7-0, 6-0 in the MIAA, a 69-6 rout of Lincoln on Saturday, celebrating homecoming 2011. Game started beautiful weather with the parade, 9,900 on hand, so by all indications a good game. And, Coach, you look at that homecoming, and we talked last week, you want your kids to be a part of all that. And, boy, with the crowd, the way it turned out, and the weather in the morning for the parade, it looked like it's a pretty good weekend.
Well, I think it was a fantastic weekend. You know, you worry when you see a team coming in that's been scored as many points as they have allowed up to that point. But so you worry about your intensity, your focus throughout the week. And we didn't practice very well on Tuesday, and our coaches were a little upset on how things went. And, you know, we kind of got them together a little bit and talked about it before Wednesday's practice, how, you know, normally the last few weeks we've been going full pads on Tuesday, helmets and shoulder pads on Wednesday and Thursday. And this last week we went full pads on Tuesday, full pads on Wednesday again, just so that they understood that we really needed to pick up the intensity at practice and focus. And so for us to come out and get off to a good start was very important. You don't want to come out and give a team like that any hope and give them a chance to get anything going. And so, you know, we were really proud of the intensity and that we came out with, and execution of the plays that we were running, and you know, really got after them on special teams as well.
You know, Tuesday and Wednesday, if people don't know, I know those are big work days at practice. How tough a call is that during the season, this late in the season, to want to go in full pads and still push yourself? Obviously, there's the risk of injury in practice.
Well, there always is, and you know, that's the line that you kind of walk. You have to determine, you know, how physical to be with each other during practice, and so that's a concern every week. And we're still to the point where we feel like we're a pretty physical football team, and so we want to go against each other on Tuesday's practice. And you know, our defensive line's hard to block. We have a team pass period where they peel their ears back and run full speed and, you know, get after us. And so you always worry about somebody swiping at the quarterback's arm or doing something they're not supposed to do. But on the other hand, we feel like that's part of what's made us better too, is going at such a fast pace in practice and getting as close to possible as game speed as we can.
Yeah, do you ever do, you know, during the week, 11 on 11, even live and high stuff?
Oh yeah, and quite a bit of it. And so, you know, Tuesday for sure, full pads. We'll even go some live PATs on Tuesday because we're on full pads, and we don't want to do it very much, but you also want to get that live rush and make sure you guys are protecting well, because you can never be, you know, comfortable with your PAT protection. You want to make sure they've all got their you know, positions covered and are stepping to the right gaps and those type of things. So we do several things, and you know, we started this a long time ago. Coach Broyle started this RCR drill, and where we get after each other and then rotate, and so we go off number one offense versus number two defense, number one defense versus number two offense, and run each other's plays and run our own plays and then run each other's plays and then rotate it. So, and we do that and some live team pass against each other, and then we try to stay on Thursday. We try to open up practice with a Mayday situation where it's live and high, 2-minute offense, and we actually did that on Wednesday and Thursday, both, and last week. And so, you know, that's something that we'll probably do quite a bit this week because of Central, when we know they're going to throw it as many times as they're going to throw it. So we'll probably do a lot more of that this week.
Are there days of the week, and we'll obviously get into the Lincoln game, but on this practice routine, what about days of the week or is it some every day dedicated to special teams?
Yeah, a lot. And the one thing that we've kind of got into a routine is Coach Weimer's likes to do kickoff coverage on Wednesday and Thursday, and gives him a little bit longer to prep off of video. So he spends quite a bit of time watching their kickoff return stuff, and then we spend a good 10 minutes to 12 minutes probably on Wednesday, and another 10 minutes on Thursday on kickoff coverage alone. And then all of our other special teams, like Coach Pierce is in charge of punt team and kickoff return team, so we give him 15 minutes on Tuesday and Wednesday for each of those, and then 5 minutes on those on Thursday. And then punt block, Coach Roth and I are kind of in charge of that group, and so we get together and spend usually 10 minutes on Tuesday, 5 minutes on Wednesday and Thursday on pump block.
How do you come to the decision who handles what special teams?
Well, a lot of them is just the same guy's been doing several things for quite some time, but we tell each coach he can have as many coaches as he needs at that time, and as many work team players or whatever, work team coaches, and so try to break it up that way. The one thing we try to get as much done as possible. So, for instance, what's helped us here lately this year is when we do kickoff coverage, there's not a lot of offensive guys on kickoff coverage, so a couple, but not a lot. And so when we're doing kickoff coverage, and so Coach Weimer's can use all the field, we'll go down and work goal line offense at that time, so that we're using one end of the field, down inside the 5-yard line, and yet he can still line up and do full live kickoff coverage against a work team. So we try to do things together and try to utilize as many people at the same time as possible.
Coaches go to clinics and all that, and that's all a very important part of it. How much more sophisticated, or whatever you want to call it, is there an emphasis on special teams since you've been involved in coaching?
Well, it's gotten to be more and more, every year. Back in the mid 80s, when Coach Franchione and Coach Worrells and I were all together, there was a time when if you had 5 full-time coaches or 4 full-time coaches, there might be 3 of them on offense and 1 of them on defense, or 5 full-time coaches, there might be 3 on offense, 2 on defense. And the more, the longer we went here, now I think that's one thing is as you get into the late 90s, early 2000s, the defenses scheme and are as well coached, definitely as well coached as all the offenses, and there's a lot more schemes that go into those, the defensive side of the ball. And then on top of that, all the amount of time that people spend on special teams, it's really made it such an important part of the game. And so, you're exactly right. There's so many people that understand the importance of it, and they spend a lot of time on it. And so, boy, you have to be sharp on your special teams. If not, you're going to get behind.
Yeah, the athletes in the league, in the return games and that, it can be a game changer. It was in a couple of good ways for Pitt State the other day. We need to take our first break. When we come back, we'll delve into that 36-point first quarter Pitt State over Lincoln this past weekend on homecoming. That and more when we return with Coach Tim Beck from Chatters after this. Welcome back to the Coach Tim Beck Show, presented by CDL Electric. Eddie Lomshek along with Pitt State head football coach Tim Beck, and glad to have you with us wherever you are. One thing we've been doing this year, courtesy of Ahmad and his staff at Chatters, giving away some certificates for free breakfast at Fat Daddy's, dine-in only. It does include a drink. It expires at the end of this calendar year, so Coach Beck will reach in the bucket here and pull out a name, and Harlan Hess, come on down, get your certificate. Keep a good weekend going. Part of that 61 team had a good gathering over the weekend, and good to see all those guys, and thanks for being here. Enjoy that. Well, Coach, 36-point first quarter, and Lincoln wins the opening toss. They defer, and thankfully that's the only thing they win, I guess, on the day. And you get the ball, and, boy, it doesn't take long. 4 plays, 60 yards. They kick it out of bounds. So you have some dangerous return men. I don't know if they're trying to kick it away, but I'm sure you're glad to get it at the 40 on the first drive. They
had struggled a little bit on their kickoff coverage team, and Coach Pierce does a good job and charted I don't know how many kickoffs. But, when they kick it deep, I think the farthest they'd kicked it was about the 15-yard line. So we were kind of excited about moving everybody up. We were moved our return guys up to about the 18 and scooted everybody up a little bit, hoping to get it in one of those guys' hands, John Thomas or John Brown, and get locked up on some people and get going. But them kicking out of bounds and taking on the 40, we'll do that every time.
And that's the thing. A couple of your kickoffs, one that Jake just did stay in bounds and squibbed in, and we were talking about special teams. There are obviously different strategies. You want to kick it to the numbers and try and pin them, but that's a fine line because I'm sure you don't want to give up the 40 for field position.
Yeah, you really don't. And unfortunately, we were giving it to them closer to the 40 more than we wanted to. But, Jake struggled a little bit on kickoffs the other day, and his ankle that he had surgery on has been bothering him a little bit. And so later in the game, he finally kicked one really, really good. And I said, well, that's what it is. We just need to get you real good and loose and go through a little pain here. And he really kicked it well. But he's had a pretty good year. We would like the placement maybe to be better at times, and obviously coverage is always scary because anytime you go against athletes that get the ball in their hand, boy, you make one bad move and they can really make you pay for it.
Well, and it was a game the other day. Jake ends up being the special teams player of the week, averaged 54 yards on 3 punts, a long of 68. That's a career-long 3 touchbacks. But in a game like that, the wind was blowing 15 to 20. So kicking it into the wind, you're not going to kick touchbacks. What are you looking for? Do you have different times you're kicking it differently?
Yeah, we definitely are. And, we've got, we can squib it or we can pooch it and do different things like that. But, yeah, as punting now, that's the thing that we haven't seen a lot of with Jake. But I tell you, in practice, he's really been booming them lately. I mean, he's really getting into a groove where he's kicked some 60-yarders with unbelievable hang time. And so it's been kind of excitable to see him really get a hold of that like that. And so it was nice to see him get 3 punts in the game last week, and he boomed them pretty good.
Well, your opening drive, you go right down the field, 4 plays, 60 yards, and one nice run in there and right up the middle by Bryson. Zach ends up 7-yard run. So 4 plays, 2 minutes in, you're up 7-0. Good start.
Yeah, it was a good start. And, we ran the ball on first play, and then second play we came back with the reverse. We were a little bit skeptical about that because of the way they played their defensive ends. They ran them up the field, but we felt like they were a pretty hard-flowing team, so we thought, let's give them a reverse and give them something to think about early on. And Castaneda was able to go about 40 yards. And so, those kind of things sometimes early really help you down the road. No different than maybe a play action and throwing it deep can help you at times and maybe soften the safeties up a little bit. But, it was a great opening drive.
You had told me last week with their alignment, it can be very unorthodox up front from some different fronts, and they have one end that's very undersized, extremely athletic and fast, but you were concerned a little bit. There were times it looks like maybe you don't know who to block because of their unbalanced alignment. Did you see much of that, or how'd you feel you handled it if you did?
Yeah, a little bit. We were fortunate to get some points early and play a lot of people, and so we got to play some young offensive linemen, which was nice, but for the most part, both groups handled it pretty well. There's a couple of times where they had some, alignments that were, not what you would normally see. And, again, we handled it fairly well. But, again, when you take somebody that's athletic like that and they run up the field on you hard, it can cause some problems. And so, Mandel Dixon started the game in a wing, and we ran a little slice play where you slice the defensive end and come across the formation and block the backside end. And there are times you would see that on video where he would be so far up the field you couldn't hardly even get to him. So you have to make an adjustment on the run and those type of things. So, we were pretty happy with our offensive line play.
Well, you're up 7-0 on the touchdown run and the extra point. They get the ball back and a good field position at the 46. And that's the thing, a team like that, for all their struggles, I know you felt they have some legit kickoff return guys.
Yeah, there's no question. Some legit kickoff return guys. And then number 8, the receiver, leading the conference in receptions. And our defense was bound and determined not to let him catch any balls, and I know he caught a few, but again, not nearly what he had done in the past. And, the first quarter defensively, we really shut them down.
Yeah, it was dominant, 3 and out on that first series, and then the block. Was it Olabo that gets in there, gets a piece of that?
Yeah, Elijah. And we had hard pressure coming from the left side.
So it was a called block?
It was a called block. It was a called block and had really hard pressure coming from the left side. The guy that we really were trying to spring open on the right side, Paul, which we did get him to come free, but he was a little late getting off the ball, so he would have blocked it, but he was a little late, and Elijah got there first, so Elijah was able to block it. Joe Windshuffle scooped it and scored.
Paul made up for it later getting there, I guess, a little late, too, on that roughing. As far as that goes with the blocks, are there times, obviously you do call a block, when you don't, are there still maybe a guy or two that apply that token pressure for different reasons?
Yeah, and that's a good point. It's important. There will be every once in a while where we won't if they really have good operation with their snapper and their punter. But most of the time, you want to at least bring one guy. And their punter had dropped 3 or 4 punts throughout the season where the snap was decent. He just dropped it on the ground. So it was important for us, no matter what we did, try to set up a return or a block, for us to at least have one guy applying pressure in case something like that happened. A lot of times it's John Thomas. A lot of times even when we have a return, John's quick enough, small enough, and he's pretty slick, and sometimes he can work up the field and then come underneath a slot or something and apply pressure that way. So we like to use him in that situation. But, I felt like we really, that was the only block we called we could have possibly, blocked another one or two if we would have continued to do that. But, that's one thing that you want the rest of the teams in the conference to see. We've been able to return a punt for a touchdown. We've been able to block a punt now for a touchdown. And so that, as a punt team, when you watch that on video, it makes you a little bit skeptical.
And then on the other side of that, token pressure, there are different punt alignments, and you guys sure use them. Are there usually a couple of guys that they're supposed to hang around and watch for any possible fakes?
Yeah, you have to make sure you know where the eligible receivers are, and that's really important. And so you have to have a guy that understands if there's a number 2 receiver eligible, if he's in a position where, he could possibly go out for a route or block down on a fake or something like that, that he's in the right position for that. So, we spend some time on it, but it's really hard to work fakes that you don't know what they could be that they're coming. And so you spend some time talking about it, but, bottom line is they got to become football players and be aware of what's happening.
Well, 14-0, the block punt by Olabode, and Wincheffel scoops and scores. Lincoln gets the ball back at their 35, and again a punt and then a good return. John Brown only had a couple of chances, but both times you get a face mask added on to it. Is that something that happens with guys like him because he is so elusive at the last second?
Yeah, I think it can. He makes – we didn't do a great job of blocking the gunners a time or two, and so – he makes the first one miss normally, and then he gets hemmed in there a little bit and is able to go get another 2 or 3 yards. And the next thing you know, somebody's coming across trying to get him knocked out of bounds or grab a hold of him and they grab his face mask. So I think that does happen every once in a while. Well,
it would lead to another score, and it just kept coming in that first quarter. We need to take another break. When we come back, we'll continue on as Pitt State would eventually score 36 in the first quarter of that route over Lincoln. So that and more still to come on the Coach Tim Beck Show, presented by CDL Electric. Welcome back to Chatters and the Coach Tim Beck Show, presented by CDL Electric. Eddie Lomshek along with Coach Beck, and the first quarter starts great. Scores on each side of the ball. Your third touchdown, a 2-play drive, 33-yard run by Zach Dickey, 1 of 2 for him. He had the first score as well. And long run, we've seen him do that with the pull. And, those gives inside, I guess, to Bryson or whatever can set it up. But what did you see about that play?
Well, we have several different reads that we use, and it's blocked a couple of different ways. We zone block some of it, and we run our power scheme where we take the back to the edge, and boy, it's tough to defend. And if you take one wrong step, and Zach kept the ball on the one, and Cody Holland had a tremendous block to spring him loose and get him up the middle, and so. It's something that you try to utilize different formations throughout different weeks and do different things, but the schemes that we're doing pretty well stay the same, but you can really get people out of position and you force people to make right decisions. And anytime you're reading somebody or, running a zone read or a power read or whatever it may be, it allows you not to have to block all the defensive linemen up front. And so we feel like that's very important. We've always been able to do a good job on our double teams, and from way back when, Coach Kroenke and Coach Wells have always done a tremendous job of coaching what we call DIR blocks, where we double team people, and so our offensive line was able to spring us on that one.
You mentioned Cody Holland, and when God invented offensive tackles, he wanted them to look like that, 6'6" and 320 or whatever. A kid from just down the road in Neosho, I think had mono, right, as his redshirt freshman year going through spring ball. So
yes.
Still just a sophomore. What kind of year is he having, and how good can he be?
Well, he's having a tremendous year. He's always been a great run blocker, where he's had to improve a little bits in his pass blocking, and he's done that. He's and he's probably close to 330, and he's just a massive guy that has athleticism. He's powerful. He's great in the weight room. He's just been a really awesome guy for us to have, and he'll continue to get better and better.
Yeah, that's part of that good O-line, and again, just a sophomore. The play we just heard coming out of it, Lincoln had picked up their first down of the game, and then a pitch behind the back gets on the turf. Naeem Forster scoops it up, and just a determined run. It looked like he just was not going to go down.
Yeah, he really was. He did a great job of scooping it up, and gets kind of slung around there a little bit and breaks a tackle, and he did show some athleticism. We had a couple guys that really worked hard to go from defense to offense and get a couple blocks, and it was an exciting play.
He's a guy that comes in from a California junior college last spring and didn't play football last fall. are you starting to see a difference, or was there a time during the year that it's, you could tell he had a year off and now he's back in it?
Yeah, I think, always we talk about, junior college transfers or any transfers, it usually takes them 4, 5, 6 games before they really get comfortable with the schemes and what you're doing. And they're always so much better the next year. Cody Moore being a great example of that. And it really makes a difference getting a year under their belt. But, he's in a position where he has played some and was backing up Chaz, and now he's going to be forced to play a lot with Chaz missing. And so, the more he plays, the better he'll get.
I forgot to do our Vital Signs Trivia Contest. We do this out of the second break on Monday nights, and this for the Gorilla Nation Mobile Fan Club texting service. You get a question texted to you Monday nights throughout the school year. Nothing you call in, multiple choice question, and if you're right, you'll have a chance to win some merchandise. And tonight's question for the Gorilla Nation Mobile Fan Club, Pitt State had 3 defensive touchdowns or special teams against Lincoln. Named the last time Pitt State had 3 defensive or special teams touchdowns in a game, and it was either Bacone, Oklahoma in 01, Rolla in 04, or Washburn in 94. So, again, we'll send that out via the text to the members of the Gorilla Nation Mobile Fan Club, and we'll have the correct answer and the winner a little bit later for you, and they'll win some merchandise courtesy of Pitt State Athletics and Vital Signs Sign Company. Need to draw another winner, too, for our certificate giveaways here. Another free breakfast at Fat Daddy's. Dine-in only. It does include a drink courtesy of Ahmad and his staff down here, Jack Lane, right on the front row there at the lucky table. So enjoy that, and you can tell them the good guys sent you down there for that. So running the ball there with Forrester, you get it going. You mentioned without Chaz right now, and we'll see if it ends up being a season-long deal or not with him. But at that safety position, how much the emergence of Jason Pete was the decision to move Chaz from a free to a strong, and yet still with Jake Catloth and Naeem and Paul Robinson, there's some quality players there for you.
Yeah, there are really some quality players, and we've got some quality backups too that are young. That the more they play, the better they'll get. And Bryant Sanchez has been another guy that we've been able to play in there. And last year against Central Oklahoma has 2 interceptions, and young Tyler Disney is another one that is emerging and continuing to get better and better. And so Jared Vinoversky is another safety that we moved from receiver to defensive back, and I think the more reps he gets, the better he'll get. Obviously, he's a good athlete, and sometimes those transitions take a little time, and sometimes they pick him up real quick. It just depends. But we've got some athletic people there and some guys that can run and do some things. So Coach Colin coaches our safeties, does a really good job with them.
How about the within that position? How big of a difference is there between playing that free safety and playing one of the bandits or strong safety as far as, a pass versus run responsibility, or how big a difference between the 2 positions?
Well, last year Chaz played the bandit position and Kuhlman played the free safety position, and so this year that's the main reason why our coaches wanted to move Chaz there, because of the experience he had, and you want that guy to be kind of your quarterback on defense and make a lot of calls and make sure you get in the right play, right coverages according to formations and those type of things. And so we want you want guys with the experience there and how they, make sure they understand everything real well. So the free safety's got a little bit more on his plate. As far as the safety position, a lot of times there's not a huge difference. There are times when they both have to be able to do a lot of the same things. Obviously, you want as good a tackler as you can possibly get. But Jason Pete's very athletic, and we saw his athleticism in the interception at Northwest. But he's still young, and he obviously is still learning and has a lot to learn yet, but he'll continue to improve. Yeah,
prototype body. He's going to be a good one. Well, you get that touchdown, then another punt, another good return by John, another face mask penalty. You get it at the 44, and you end up scoring on Bryson Wilson. So it's a tough situation because a lot of your regulars don't get many carries or touches, if you will, but bottom line is you're able to get a lot of those guys in there early. You get what you can out of them, and can't control what Lincoln does. So how tough is that to know when to pull the plug on those number ones?
Well, you want to make sure they get plenty of reps, and you want to make sure. But then on the other hand, you want them to get some action, but you want to make sure they're healthy for the next week too. So, we haven't had many games like that the last 2 years, so it was really important to get our young guys in there and let them play. And one of the things at halftime, a lot of times on kickoff coverage, as an example, you have a lot of your backups and that may end up being number one guys. Well, you don't want your backups to go in. You don't want to just say number two kickoff team you're in, because there's a lot of starters on those teams. So we went in and adjusted several special teams and tried to get some people on there that maybe had repped it but wasn't a one or two. And so there were a lot of guys. Bryant Sanchez example, he's not our number one or number two punt returner, but he catches some punts during practice and does a good job with it. So, we allowed him to do that in the second half.
Well, that touchdown by Bryce makes it 26-0. You had a roughing on Paul Robinson, but a couple plays later, Jason Peak gets an interception. On the roughing, sometimes it happens, but guys are trying to go off the front of a foot. Did Paul just go at him too much a little bit?
Yeah, Paul was just, being over-aggressive, and he's actually mugging his guy and getting after his guy, but then they didn't protect very well, so the next thing you know, he's applying pressure, and the next thing you know, he's roughing the guy. So we weren't very happy about that. But again, he plays extremely hard. He's being aggressive. He's trying to do the right thing. It's just we want to make sure that we're doing our assignments.
Well, you look at that first quarter, and they have one first down, two actually, one on offense, one by penalty. They're running some zone read stuff. They're trying to get to the edge defensively when you score once, and obviously the blocked punts. It's pretty dominant first half for you.
Well, the biggest problem that Lincoln has is in their offensive and defensive line. They just don't have the guys right now.
They're big
they
up
need.
front,
They're
but
big,
slow.
They're big. They're just not able to bang in there with the offensive and defensive linemen and the other groups in the MIAA, and so that's where they're having trouble. Their quarterbacks were able to get the ball to number 8, like they have been throughout the season, that they're scary. But, just to line up and play down in and down out, they're just not as deep as they need to be in the O-line, D-line.
Well, it turned out to be a dominant half at first quarter as well, and a couple of touchdown passes we'll talk about. So that and more still to come. We owe you another break. We'll come back with more of the Coach Tim Beck Show presented by CDL Electric right after this. Eddie Lomshek back with Pitt State head football coach Tim Beck. That was one of the touchdowns there in the half. A couple of touchdown passes in that second quarter. Redshirt freshman quarterback Anthony Abinoa comes in there, and a guy that, you see him play a couple of times, and you know what he can do with the ball and zinging it around. It was looked like a great adjustment. I know it was a little high, but John just able to climb the ladder, and I guess he's getting to the point that we shouldn't be surprised by some of those catches.
Yeah, it was a great adjustment, I thought. Anthony, he can really throw that football, and he zipped that thing. There wasn't a lot of air underneath it. It was a post route, and a lot of times we want our post to be real vertical, a little bit skinny to the inside, and the ball can carry you inside. But Anthony put it pretty much on a rope, and it was getting there in a hurry, and it was a little bit outside of where they normally are, and so John had to really make an acrobatic catch to get to it. It was a tough catch.
Yeah, stop, turn, elevate, and the D-back flew on by, and John skates in. So 43-0 there. And you get off as far as the extra points. You end up missing one, and it looked like on the run by John Thomas, we haven't talked about that. He's had to step in there. Luke Rampy banged up right now, but that's a guy that did it last year, so I know you don't expect to drop off much there.
No, really don't. And you get, the thing about it is we had Luke and John, and so now you have to find another one. So we had quick tryouts last week for that. So hopefully we'll get Luke back here in a week or two and take care of that problem. But yeah, John did it all last year, and he's good with it. And it was exciting. We had a little bit of a bad snap, and John was able to pick it up and run around the end. He's quick enough to go do that.
And Billy Avey's your snapper, and 3 years of doing that, he hadn't had many of those.
No, he really hasn't. He struggled, struggles every once in a while, and kind of rolled a couple of them back there the other day. But he's a competitor too. He'll get that straightened out.
You have Kendall come down and
That's right.
walk him through it, I guess, if he needs to at this point. Another touchdown for Anthony. Delivers a dart just over the middle. John Thomas and catches that just all alone in the middle of the field. Looked like a pretty conservative drag route. It turns into a big play.
John does a really good job of running some of those inside vertical routes. And, with some of the play action that we do, and that really wasn't play action, but some of that stuff, it makes it very difficult on linebackers. The next thing you know, he's back in behind them and getting him in the vertical seams. Anthony did throw a strike, and the guy had a really hard time staying with him. The next thing you know, he's in the end zone.
Well, that, the cherry on the sundae to a 50-0 first half. You had a takeaway in there as well, interception by Eric Brantley, redshirt freshman linebacker. Not real big, but looks like a pretty athletic kid. How much upside does he have?
He's got, Eric's a young man that played at Raytown South High School and just a great kid, outstanding student, and he's a very excitable player, and he's Coach Roth's had some issues with him as far as he's kind of all over the place because he's really quick and he gets places really fast, and so sometimes he gets himself a little bit out of position. But he was in the right place at the right time the other night. I think he's got a huge upside. He does a good job on kickoff coverage for the most part for us, and really gets down the field well. And he's just a lot of fun to have on our team.
Is there concern he's listed at 5'11", 190? Is that undersized at all to play there?
A little bit
compared to who you have now.
Yeah, compared to the monsters that we have in there right now. Yeah, just a little bit type of player. Until we go against somebody that's just running the ball down your throat every snap, then he can play in this league right now with the way offenses are. Now, if things change, and it would make it a little bit tougher on him, but he's a strong kid. He's very aggressive. He'll hit you, and he gets there pretty quick.
With him, and I know a couple you signed at your redshirting from Blue Springs and Olathe. Do you feel good about the depth you can start to develop at that linebacker?
I think that we've got several young guys that we'll have to make some decisions on who we keep there and if we move them. But Kyle Swartz from Olathe North, a linebacker. Lewis Fouts from Blue Springs, he's a tough, hard-nosed kid, and Bobby Harris from Grove is another one that, gosh, he's 275, 280 pounds.
Downhill player.
But he's agile, and so. We've got three guys there that are young that we have a lot of hope for.
Yeah, it's obviously an important position. 50-0 at halftime, and I think you told BJ on the sidelines at half you want to come out and probably play your O-line one unit. Your skill guys were pretty much done, and defensively you come out 3 and out. You end up trading punts quite a bit. So with some second-team guys, although you're not real productive in the third quarter, how important is it to get the reps? Those guys are one play from being in there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We don't have a ton of depth in the offensive line, and so it wasn't like you could just go out there and play your twos the whole time too. I guess we could have, but we felt like O-line wise, let's let them go one more series, and then we'll start getting the twos in, and a lot of our twos got in there and did a really nice job. I thought. You worry about games like that getting sloppy and really becoming a mess, and penalties and turnovers, and there was a little bit of that. But for the most part, it was pretty clean. Our guys were intense that were playing, and I was really happy with how the second half turned out.
Yeah, 11 penalties, and that's a tough position to be in to know, do you quit trying, so to speak, and just go through the motions? But you mentioned the O-line, the depth there. Starting to play Aaron Kolich a little more. Thought he might be lost for the year. He's come back. What's that situation at center?
He was really happy on Sunday. I asked him how he felt, and he said, "Boy, I'm just feeling so much better right now than I was." And so, that's really nice to have him and Tyler. And Tyler's obviously done a good job for us, and he's got some reps. So it's really nice to know that we have two centers now. And Jeremiah Fleming's another one that mainly plays guard for us, but he can play center. But getting there and back, and we'll just have to make a decision this week on how much we play him this weekend. But he's improving every day, which really will be helpful. But
well, then some young guys, Ollie Venegas, Boston Huggins, a guy that transferred from Omaha out of Blue Springs. So, those guys maybe not a lot of reps right now. Do you feel good about the potential for some of your young linemen? We coaches. Steve Wells goes back and grades our video on Sunday, and Oliver Venegas ended up being our offensive lineman of the week from our coaches. And so, he's a very physical, tough guy that is continuing to get better. And so, that group that we redshirted this last year, all those redshirt freshmen, that's a pretty good group. Well, it's important, obviously, to have as much depth. End up getting a block punt for a touchdown. Avery Adair runs it in. I think their quarterback, not a very deep drop, and kicked the ball into the back of their guy. But Avery, there's a kid, 6'5", 220 something listed, but has the frame to carry some weight. Looks like a pretty athletic, quick guy.
Avery is a young man that everybody was worried when we recruited him that, he's not going to get big enough, But, he's 6'5", was probably 205 pounds a year ago. He's probably getting to where he's pushing 230 now. Really long arm, really great get off. When he got here last year, his stance wasn't very good and this and that. And our coaches have done a really good job with him. He's a great kid, has a high motor. we expect him to be. He could be one of those guys here 2 or 3 years from now. We look out there and he's 260 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, it could really happen. And boy, he's. We were a little bit worried. We didn't know if he'd be able to play in the game. He had a little bit of a hamstring issue on Wednesday, but kind of worked himself through it and got ready to play on Saturday.
Lincoln eventually scores. You have to kick a couple of field goals down the stretch. Well, let me go back to one. Also, Jeff Siebold had a touchdown run for you. We've talked about him a little bit, but Jason Spradling's been banged up, and now without Solomon for the time being. So how important is it to get Jeff some carries?
Well, it's really important. And Jeff, he's continuing to improve. He's getting more comfortable with what we're doing, and he's one of those guys, boy, you get him in the game, and he's impressing me more and more every week because he makes the right cut at the right time. He knows when to explode. He knows when to be patient. And you'll notice a little bit, sometimes he's pretty patient, but, boy, when he turns it on, he gets after it pretty good. Has
that little burst. Then you do have to settle for a couple of field goals. How tough of a call in a game like that is it? If you go for it to run off more clock, it really looks bad, but if you kick field goals, it looks like you're wanting more points.
Well, we argued about that on the phones actually on Saturday. Coach Rampy wanted to go for them. It's one of those deals. You don't know what the right thing to do is. And heck, we always need to practice on field goals, so we decided to go ahead and kick field goals.
Well, Chase having a good year. He's 9 of 11. He did miss an extra point. He just hooked it a little bit. It was kind of a line drive there.
Yeah, I'm not sure, exactly what happened. He wasn't sure. It's just one of those things where he felt like he kicked through and he just missed it. Unfortunately, it's our first miss of the year.
First miss and only 2 field goal misses. That's been a good year. Your third quarterback gets to play, Dennis Tanner, and a kid from Raytown that came here as a quarterback, ended up redshirting and moving over to receiver in the spring, and now back with a change at quarterback. So he's had to bounce around a little bit, but seems like a pretty athletic kid.
He's very athletic, and Dennis very deceiving. He doesn't run the fastest 40, but he's really hard to tackle in the open field. And boy, when we moved him receiver, we thought, boy, he's going to be a good receiver. He can snatch the ball out of the air. He does some nice things. And then right before the season started, Tanner Bailey decided he wasn't going to play. He was kind of penciled in as competing for, the number 2 spot, number 3 spot. And so we asked Dennis, hey, how do you feel about moving back? And I'll do whatever I can to play. And he's come in there and done a tremendous job. I was really proud of how he played on Saturday.
And you mentioned Jeremiah Fleming, a Colgan kid. I see Dalton Schoonover out there from Pittsburg, and Trey Derryberry, Carthage, and T.J. Davis, Pleasanton. And obviously they're getting some mop-up time, but how important is it to have some local kids that are willing to try and make others better around them?
Well, it's definitely important. Trey Derryberry, he's another one. We're proud of what he's done. He's played receiver and hasn't got a chance to play a lot. And a couple of weeks ago, we were thin at work team quarterback. He goes over work team quarterback. He was a very good quarterback in high school, does a tremendous job, was our work team player of the week. And T.J. Davis is one of those guys that we do tackling drills in the spring and last fall, and people aren't lining up to tackle him. He's like tackling a bag of sand. And so, it was nice to get those guys in the game and give them a chance to show what they can do.
And one thing BJ said on the sideline, when your second-team O-line was in there, your first-teamers weren't lounging on the bench. They were up, and when they come off the field talking to them, how important is that for those upperclassmen to stay interested when those backups are in there?
Well, you want to make sure that they watch the guys to their position, and boy, most of them, they practice all the time together. They work hard together, and that's what you want to see. You want to see your older guys helping your younger guys, and they learn a lot from that. They really do, and so it's no different than, boy, when you're not playing, you talk about it from when you're playing Pee-wee football. When you're not in the game, watch the guy in front of you. If you're in the back of the line, watch the guy in front of you. And so, now they get their chance. It's important for the older guys to watch them and help them out.
Saw Sean Payton get hurt, Saints coach. You ever have any close calls on the sideline?
Well, Fort Hayes, took a pretty good shot out of Fort Hayes, and I think
it's tougher than him, right?
Well, I think Coach Weimer's maybe kind of pushed me a little bit too. So
he's the assistant head coach. He's
yeah, exactly. He shoved me right out in front of him. But no, he actually didn't push, but he wasn't hanging around to see how I was doing either. That's what really bothered me.
Well, that could be dangerous. Yeah, hanging around just trying to do your job. We need to take our final break. Come back. We'll have another giveaway and turn our attention to the Central Missouri Mules in Warrensburg on Saturday. Stay with us. Eddie Lomshek back on the Coach Tim Beck Show, presented by CDL Electric with Coach Beck live from Chatters. Earlier we gave you the Vital Signs Gorilla Nation Mobile Fan Club Trivia Contest, and Saturday 3 defensive/special team scores against Lincoln. When was the last time that happened? The options were Bacone, Oklahoma in 2001, Rolla in 04, or Washburn in 94, and the answer was Bacone. September 8, 2001. Pitt State had 3 interception returns for touchdowns in that game. Earl Henry, Tom Blancett, Tarek Wilson, a 70-0 victory. So that was a good day. And Kaylee Kinch of Parsons, Kansas knew that. Kaylee will win a pair of tickets to Pitt State's November the 5th game against Washburn, courtesy of Vital Signs and Pitt State Athletics. So your chance to play every Monday during the school year, player of the game voting, and football and basketball season, the Gorilla Nation Mobile Fan Club. Check it out online, PittStateGorillas.net. Go ahead, Coach. We'll draw our final winner. And this is a good one here, a $25 gift certificate to Chatters and House of Wings. Allie Noyce, come on down. She'll use that. And appreciate Ahmad and his staff giving us the opportunity for those giveaways. Getting Coach Broyles wanted to win tonight, so maybe next week. yeah. Yep, we'll try again next week. We'll coach up to Warrensburg, and if it's going to be 69-6, I hope it's for the good guys. Obviously, I don't think it will be. You don't have games like that very often in the MIAA. But Jim Sabota in his second year, very talented last year. They lost a boatload of production, and they're not bad. 5-2, and obviously a high-octane offense. So where does it start, you think, on Saturday?
Well, Coach Weimer's, we talked a little bit about noon today, and he's, like a lot of times the more you watch somebody, you get to thinking, well, they're maybe not quite as good as you initially thought they were, and it's kind of going the other way with him right now. He's thinking the more he watches them, the better they get. So, they're going to throw the ball 50 to 60 times a game probably, and they haven't been able to run the ball very much up until this last week, and they're going to throw it all over the yard, and it always concerns you when you have to play a team like that, and at Central it'll be a tough game.
It's their last home game too.
Last home game. Coach Savota he's a very intelligent, does a great job of scheming things offensively, getting good matchups, and so that's always a concern. They do a good job of moving people around and shifting people. And so there's a lot of things that our defense will have to prepare for this week. 2nd
and 10, 3rd and 10. It's not as big a deal to teams like this as it is to some, but is 3rd down a critical situation against them?
Oh, there's no question. 3rd down is a very critical situation. The thing about them, they've got great receivers, but they've had one catch, I think, that's been like 75, 77 yards. The rest of them are 25 and under, so they really are very, very good in the short passing game. And very patient. They're not afraid to throw the back out of the backfield. They get into their skill guys' hands and then let them try to go make first downs. And so, boy, you really have to be able to cover the whole field.
Yeah, because they'll use those tight ends. They will use those backs, as you mentioned. How difficult does that make it of knowing when to pick and choose your spots to bring pressure?
Oh, there's no question. You have to be able to change things up. And we feel like we've got 4 quality defensive linemen. You'd like to be able to keep them in the game as much as possible. And you have to make some decisions. Are you going to rush 3, 4, 5, 6? How many are you going to rush? How many are you going to drop? And you have to be able to mix things up. You can't just line up and stand there and do the same thing time after time because they'll pick you apart. So it's really going to be interesting to see what Coach Weimer's and the defensive guys come up with, and who we move where, and be ready for all the shifts and motions and different things that they do.
Their quarterback, Tommy Corwin, kind of a first-year player, but he's not real big, 6 feet, 205. What's he look like? Are they in the shotgun a lot with him?
They do a lot of things, they'll do everything with him, and he's been in the program for a while and watched, and sat there and watched one of the best in the country, obviously, and so he's, I think he started off a little slow at the beginning of the year, and now he's really picking up the pace. You can tell his comfort level is way better than it was in the beginning of the year, and that makes a difference. And so, he's one of those teams you'd really like to play in week 1 or week 2 instead of now, but. He's done a really fine job, and again, offensively, the schemes and stuff that they do are very good.
Their leading receiver, Jamar Howard, 6'4", 220, transfer from the University of Cincinnati. What challenges does a bigger receiver present to you?
He brings a lot of challenges, and along with that is their tight end. They got a tight end that's really hard to, he's a really hard matchup, and so they do a really good job of getting the ball to the tight ends and the backs, and those are matchups that you worry about, because you've got inside linebackers to have to do some of the, pick up some of those coverages. And so it'll be an extremely tough football game.
Well, the good news is you get the ball, too, sometimes. And they're giving up a little over 200 yards a game rushing. So not that you're not going to throw it, but your offense could sure help your defense here.
you know, that's the thing. Offensively, we're going to have to be able to take care of the football. We're going to have to continue to, you know, do a good job rushing the ball. They have a lot of the same guys back defensively that they did last year, and they've got a defensive lineman that played in the national championship game from Oregon, and he's not one of their better D linemen. It tells you the quality of the defensive lineman that they have. And so, you know, it'll be a very tough contest, and it'll obviously be very important for us offensively not to turn the ball over.
Well, that and more among the things to watch and listen for. Kickoff from Warrensburg Saturday at 1:30. Our coverage will begin at 12:30. For Cam Koenig back in studio, and for Coach Tim Beck, I'm Eddie Lomshek from Chatters. As always, thanks for being with us, and CBS News is next.